Legendary football coach and NASCAR team owner Joe Gibbs has garnered a $60 million net worth in his 60-year career. That's a whole lot of money, and you'd have to spend about $3,000 a day for 50 years before running out of cash. What does Joe Gibbs do with all that money? Let's find out. Joe Jackson Gibbs ventured into sports back in Santa Fe High School, where he was a star quarterback for the football team. In 1964, Gibbs began his career professionally as the offensive line coach at San Diego State under Coryell. He led San Diego's extremely successful Air Coryell style. He held the same position under Bill Peterson at Florida State before moving on to John McKay at Southern California and Frank Broyles at Arkansas. In 1973, head coach Don Coryell hired Gibbs as the offensive backfield coach for the St. Louis Cardinals. From there, he moved on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where he worked as an offensive coordinator under McKay. While in Tampa, Gibbs earned a reputation for promoting African-American quarterbacks in the NFL, a very divisive move at the time. He knew how to spot a good player and did everything to hire only the best. Doug Williams was the first African-American quarterback taken in the first round, thanks to Gibbs' role in Tampa Bay. Gibbs' career as an offensive coach ended when Redskins owner Jack Kent Cooke was looking for prospects after sacking then-head coach Jack Pardee. Cooke, who had a good eye for detecting leadership just like Joe Gibbs, spotted Gibbs' potential during an interview and hired him. Joe Gibbs' first season with the Redskins didn't start off so well, and the club lost its first 5 games. Even in the face of failure, Cooke predicted that the club would finish 8-8 because he had faith in Gibbs. In fact, the defeats, along with Cooke's confidence, were the right spark, and the determined club became so good and scored an even 8-8 record in 1981. During the second season, Gibbs' Redskins defeated the Miami Dolphins in Super Bowl XVII by a score of 27-17, although the season was cut short by a player strike. His success continued with a 14-2 regular season record and a 51-7 home victory over the Los Angeles Rams in the divisional round of the playoffs. In 1983, the Redskins won the NFC Championship for the second time, defeating the San Francisco 49ers 24-21 on a last-second field goal to advance to Super Bowl XVIII. In 1986, Gibbs led the club to a 12-4 regular season record, a wild-card playoff victory over the Los Angeles Rams, and a road divisional round victory over the reigning champion Chicago Bears to return to the NFC Championship game against the New York Giants. The next year, the Redskins entered the playoffs and defeated the Chicago Bears 21-17 on the road in the divisional round, then defeated the Minnesota Vikings 17-10 at home in the NFC Championship game, then won against the Denver Broncos in Super Bowl XXII. 4 years later, the Redskins won their first 11 games before ending 14-2 and cruising through the playoffs with home wins over the Atlanta Falcons and Detroit Lions. By 1992, Joe Gibbs had earned an estimated net worth of over $40 million and felt ready to move on. He returned for the 1992 regular season to help the Redskins defend their Super Bowl victory from the previous year. The Redskins ended with a 9-7 record and third place in the NFC East. March of 1993, 2 months after Super Bowl XXVII, Gibbs announced his retirement, startling many in the organization and outside the league. Center Jeff Bostic described it as the biggest shock in his life. Gibbs was a noted workaholic who had begun to have health issues and wished to spend more time with his family. He moved on to NASCAR and founded the organization Joe Gibbs Racing, which has since won 5 NASCAR Cup Series championships. In 1996, Joe Gibbs was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame and selected to the NFL 100 All-Time Team. He is the only person inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame and the Motorsports Hall of Fame. The first driver on his racing team was Dale Jarrett, but now he has some of NASCAR's biggest talents, including Kyle Busch, who won their second championship, and Martin Truex Jr. What you may not know about Joe Gibbs is that he's also a writer. He co-wrote Joe Gibbs' 4th and 1 in 1992 and Racing to Win in 2003. The books are a business and life how-to and motivational guide in which Gibbs discusses his career successes and failures and offers readers the lessons he learned as tips. In 2009, Gibbs wrote the book Game Plan for Life, which chronicles his life in football, how his faith in God can help others, and key topics he feels are important to today's men and women trying to lead a Christian life in today's world. He is a master in his art. When Gibbs was in San Diego, he helped develop a passing-based system. With the Redskins, he used a rushing term called the counter trade. Gibbs could dominate the line of scrimmage by assembling a strong offensive line named the Hogs. This allowed workhorse running backs John Riggins, George Rogers, and Ernest Biner to carry the load on the ground. History has proven that no matter how skilled a coach you are, championship success requires a great quarterback. Joe Gibbs did not have a star quarterback. With 3 different quarterbacks, he won 3 Super Bowls. Only Bill Parcells has won 2 Super Bowls while using different quarterbacks. He's the first coach in NFL history to have a new starting quarterback, running back, and lead receiver in each of his Super Bowl triumphs. In his book, Racing to Win, Gibbs made it clear how his success came to be. He stated that leadership determines everything. The coach is the boss. You will prosper if you have his approval. If not, find another coach. Above all, who you work for influences the course of your growth. He also emphasized teamwork. You need solid players that can rely on one another. A great team is priceless. You might be the best squad leader, but you will lose if you lack a strong supporting cast. This is evident in his entire career as a football coach and NASCAR team owner. Back in the day, sports writers who covered the Washington Redskins regularly shared stories about Coach Joe Gibbs and his sleeping habits. That is to say, he rarely slept. Except when his team had a bye week, he was nearly always in training camp at Redskins Park. He frequently slept on the sofa in his office, especially during Dallas week. Things have changed a bit in his 31 years as the NASCAR Hall of Fame team owner of Joe Gibbs Racing. He no longer sleeps in his office, but doesn't sit back in his lavish office and tell people what to do. He's as hands-on as you can get. In an interview with Inc. Africa, Gibbs said, "Some young people come to me, I guess because I've won some football games and some races, and they'll say, 'How do I become successful?' For me, success really came down to having the right priorities in life. If you think about that, should my occupation, making money, be the first thing in my life? I don't think so. For me, it's God and my relationship with Him that should be first. The second most important thing in my life is the influence I have on others. My kids, my grandkids, the people I work with, the people I can touch, because what we're going to leave on the earth is the impact we've had on others and nothing else. We don't get to leave anything else. That puts our occupation third." Gibbs is successful and has made all the money. What does he spend it on? The legend places family is very important, so they should be as big as benefactors. He owns a $1 million property in Charlotte, North Carolina, where he lives with his family. Jackson and Ty, his grandkids, both work with his team. Jackson is a member of Christopher Bell's pick crew in the NASCAR Cup Series. Ty drives the number 54 for JGR in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. He won the ARC Menard Series Championship in 2021 and the NASCAR Xfinity Series Championship in 2022. He also splurges millions on his NASCAR team. Nowadays, the most important technology in a NASCAR isn't the engine, suspension, or anything composed of carbon fiber. It's engine oil. Joe Gibbs Racing, which owns 3 top-tier Sprint Cup cars, has spent around $1 million each year over the last decade perfecting its engine oil, amounting to $10 million. As a result, its engines now produce an additional 10 horsepower at a 2% boost that may not sound like a lot for a regular car, but on the tracks where the normal margin of victory is around 1 second, it makes a lot of difference. His team's winnings are $34 million, while the team is worth $240 million. Joe Gibbs also does philanthropy. He established Youth for Tomorrow, a nonprofit organization licensed by the Virginia Department of Social Services and Behavioral Health and Development Services. They provide secondary education to residential and day school students. It helps families, children, and adolescents by providing residence, education, and other needed services. We do not know if Gibbs has a fleet of luxury cars like most millionaires do, or flies a private jet, but the 82-year-old NASCAR Hall of Famer has everything he needs to call himself successful.